Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we gotta talk about this grand opening of a high-rise with really expensive apartments in Los Angeles for the Skid Row community in order to get the homeless people off the streets, because it's absolutely ridiculous. The time that it took to build this is insane, and again, the cost per unit absurd in every possible way. Now, we're going to get into this. We're going to talk about this. But before we do, thank you to everyone who signed up over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Happening today, a grand opening for a high-rise homeless shelter featuring apartments with skyline views, a gym, even a cafe.
Now look, I want to make something clear for everybody out there in the audience, and for those of you who are not even out there in the audience. I don't hate homeless people. Despite what people will say on the internet.com whenever you criticize any of these government programs, I got nothing against them as long as they're not causing additional problems. But the state of California just built up a high-rise in Skid Row with skyline views, its own cafe, a gym in it for the homeless people. And again, when you hear how much these apartments cost, when you hear the amount of money that was put in per unit, it's going to blow you away.
We're going to show you what $165 million will get you. It's considered affordable housing, but the cost to build this type of a project, it still adds up. Each unit costs nearly $600,000, and it's being funded by taxpayers.
Okay. So right there, you just got a bit of a taste of the numbers. First and foremost, $165 million to build this high-rise. And this high-rise is not for luxury Angelenos. It's not for middle-class Angelenos. This is what the government spent based on a prop that they voted in 2016, Prop HHH, which means it took 8 years to spend $165 million on this property. Now, you guys probably already know this, but I feel like I have the need to say it. The Empire State Building was built in under a year. At that point in time, it was the tallest building in the world, and it was built in under a year. Now, with all of the modern technology in the nearly 100 years since the construction of the Empire State Building, a high-rise that pales in comparison to its size was built for $165 million over the course of 8 years by the taxpayers. So already we're talking about an absolute disaster, a total boondoggle, a complete waste of money. And then when you hear that each individual apartment costs $600,000 a piece, or nearly $600,000 a piece, you realize the absolute absurdity. And by the way, for those of you out there in the audience who are wondering about that California article or the breakdown of how they wasted over $24 billion addressing the homelessness crisis, and that money seems to have done nothing and it's completely unaccountable, it's stuff like this that money ends up going to, jacking up the cost for construction firms that are well connected, all the different environmental impact studies and lawsuits that you have to go through in order to build anything. And this high-rise is completed, again, for the drug addicts at Skid Row to move into.
Take a look at the images here. There are 278 units in this 19-story development known as the Weingart Tower. It's intended to help people currently without shelter on Skid Row. This will be LA's largest permanent supportive housing project.
Now look, 278 rooms is nothing to sneeze at. Under normal circumstances, if a developer were to put that up, that's going to house a lot of people. But remember, this cost $165 million. It took 8 years to make, and it's supposed to service the homeless people in Los Angeles, specifically in Skid Row, to which there are thousands of them. So while you might help 278 people, maybe if you're allowing families in there, you can get that number closer to 750 if you add 3 people per household, which I don't believe is going to be the case. But the fact of the matter is, if you would have taken the $600,000 per unit and then gave 10% of that to homeless people, you would give them $60,000 and they might be better off for that, especially if you buy into the myth, like a lot of left-wingers do in California, that homeless people just fell on sharp times. They just got an unexpected expense and then they ended up on the street. Well, if those people actually exist and they represented a significant portion of the homeless population, then you could have given them a jump start, a little bit of a cash infusion, and those who are supposedly just a couple of payments away from being housed would have been able to be housed. You didn't have to waste all of this money on this luxury building in Skid Row that, again, only services 278 households. I'll be generous and not say people, households.
There is an entire floor of offices for caseworkers, and the list of amenities is pretty impressive. As you mentioned, there's a gym, an art room, a music room, and a computer room and library. People living here will enjoy 6 common balconies and a cafe. The $165 million project is receiving permanent financing from Proposition HHH, which voters overwhelmingly passed in 2016.
So where the money actually goes is incredibly important. What these luxuries are for, also incredibly important. And obviously what this is a fancy new office for the caseworkers in the homeless industrial complex to operate out of that is equipped with a cafe for the caseworkers, a gymnasium for the caseworkers, and all these different other various things that theoretically are luxuries or excesses for the homeless, but in reality are going to be luxuries and excesses for the people who are dealing with the homeless and profiting off of the perpetuation of the homelessness crisis. In reality, the people that are addicted to opioids on Skid Row, they're not going to go run on the treadmill and have a good time. You know what would be funny though? If they started stealing the gym equipment, stealing the computers in order to hawk that, in order to make money to buy more drugs, because none of this addresses the issues of these people like mental health and whatnot that they're dealing with. Instead, you just incinerated a bunch of money on this really nice building with really nice apartments that only people who are likely to destroy the building and the apartments are going to live in. And I feel really bad, genuinely so, for the actual family that has no mental health issues, that has no drug issues, that is going to be moved into one of these Skid Row apartments that's going to be surrounded by crazy people, because that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to want to move. You are actually going to see, and I kid you not, people reject these shelters because of the other people that are in the shelters, because that's how unsound this plan actually is.
The new tower is also receiving state housing funds and $56 million in state tax credits.
Look, I don't want to be the guy who harps in on irrelevant details, but the thing is, I am that guy, and I do want to be the person who harps on irrelevant details. And one of the funniest parts about all these artistic renderings or images that are meant to promote this property that come from the developer is that even though this is clearly and obviously intended to be for people who live on Skid Row, who again have a lot of drug problems, who look absolutely filthy, they didn't even take the time to not put in the stock images of people or the staged images of people on this property, because right here you have a lovely 40s, maybe 30s-year-old couple that look like they work in the tech sector. And again, this is supposed to be housing for the homeless, the people on Skid Row. But wow, they're going to turn them into these people by just getting them into the system. Maybe that's what they're trying to portray. But in reality, they just didn't care. They swindled this money from the taxpayers.
$165 million project is receiving permanent financing from Proposition HHH, which voters overwhelmingly passed in 2016.
Prop HHH, if you heard, it gave them permanent financing for this particular project, and over the course of 8 years, California construction firms and all these different various groups were able to suck up all that money, and guess what? The drain is not over. They are going to have to pay through the nose to maintain these buildings. I got a fiance who works in commercial real estate. We have this program where you have these affordable units mixed in with the regular ordinary units, and developers have to set aside these units in order to build more luxury units. And guess what ends up happening? The people that move in, especially at the really low rents, and by the way, these people are not supposed to be as proportional as drug users as the people on Skid Row, absolutely destroy and obliterate the place and cause all these different maintenance problems for the people who own these buildings. Well, guess what? That's going to be increased tenfold right here, because each and every one of these tenants is supposedly going to be one of these people. Now, one of my favorite things that will likely occur as a result of this is that some of the people on Skid Row that get into these apartments, some of the homeless that actually just want to be on the streets, are probably going to sublease this to regular Angelenos who don't want to pay for the expensive cost of living, and that's how they're going to support their drug habit. There's so many different ways, honestly, that this could spiral out of control. I cannot wait for the taxpayers of Los Angeles to regret each and every ballot that they issued in favor of this.
The grand opening set for later this morning. Several elected officials are going to be there, including Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass.
Now, of course, all the politicians are going to be there for the ribbon cutting ceremony, because the ribbon cutting ceremony is the most fun part for the politicians. They're not going to be there for the fun of all the crime and all the problems that this is going to cause. But this guy says, oh, this is just the beginning because there's another tower on the way. It says it's a year away, but it's under construction right now, and I can't wait to see how much that will cost.
And guys, this is really just the beginning. There's more planned. Another tower more than a year away, but it's under construction.
Now look, we've covered a lot of different projects like this out of the state of California. Another one of these buildings actually had the units balloon to over $800,000 in costs, but that one hasn't opened. But based on the way that they're using the resources of the taxpayer, this is not a solution. $165 million in order to house, again, the families maybe of 278 people. This won't help anything. It's not going to create anything positive long term because they're not addressing the actual issues that these people are dealing with. Also, there's all these extra rights and extra protections for people who are homeless, want to remain homeless in the state of California, in the entire West Coast, actually, that comes from the Ninth Circuit. And until the Supreme Court overturns that, they're kind of hamstrung in what they can do, not to mention all the additional things passed at the local level and the state level in order to aid the homelessness crisis or aid the homeless people in making it a crisis in Los Angeles and in California as a whole. But I wanted you to see it. I wanted you to see how beautiful this building is, that only the people who do problems in our society are allowed to have access to, and of course the social workers who get a high-tech, comfortable, Google-like office space for themselves so that you guys can react to it. Now, as usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the new Skid Row housing. Till next time.